Hello, hi. Let's start. In the last class, we had discussed about the object-oriented programming, right? In object-oriented programming languages, we will write the code using classes and objects, correct? So class is a collection of variables and functions. Object means what? Any real-world entity is called as an object. It can represent a person, a bank account, or anything. It can represent anything, a product or anything, we can say. So generally, all the entities should have what and what that we have to put in the class. In one object, we will store the data of one particular entity, correct? Like that we had discussed. And even we had seen an example on the object-oriented programming. That is by using the classes and objects, we had written one code also. So what we had done is we had stored the data of one student and also displayed that onto the monitor. So how we had done that means, firstly, we had taken a class called as student. In that, to store this 10, you are taking yes and no variable. To store this John, you're taking yes name. To store this US, you're taking yes address variable. To execute this body, you're calling the display function. Like you want to execute some body, actually you want to execute this body. So you will be just writing that in the display function. So actually, I want to use SNO variable to print 10. I want to use yes name variable to print John. I want to use yes address variable to print US onto the monitor. That means what? I want to use the variables and even this method I want to use. I want to use the variables and methods of a class. Then what I have to do? I have to create object for the class. So how to create object means you have to come out of the class and follow the syntax. What is that? Object name equal to class name. Object name equal to class name. So left hand side is the name of the object and right hand side is the name of the class for which you want to create that object. So what will be displayed? Accessing the variables individually will be displayed. Student1.snbo. That means what 10. Student1.sname, John. Student1.s address, US. Complete data of the student1. Student1.display. The display is called student details is printed. Hyphen is repeated for 50 times. Student number is 10. Student name is John. Student address is US. The student will join will be displayed. So up to here it is already done, right? In the same way, like what I had done is I told the general structure. Class should be there. The required variables and functions you have to take. Just you have to go out of the class, create object for this and call. Create object and call these variables and functions. That is what we had done. So now what I will do is, yeah, this is also seen anyhow. We are taking the class called as employee with a lot of variables and functions in that. In order to use these variables and functions, I have to create object for the employee class. Once the object is created, we are free to call anything from that. ENO, EAG package we are calling. Employee1.employee details. So this body is executed. Fine. So now what we will do is, we will see what exactly going to happen once we create object for the class. So I told that if you want to use the variables and methods of a class, then you have to create an object for the class. If we want to use the variables and methods of a class, then we have to create an object for the class. So what will happen if the object is created? What is going to happen if the object is created? Once the object, see what is the object that I'm creating? Employee, right? Employee1, right? The object name. Once the object is created, then what is going to happen? That object will occupy some memory. Object is called as a physical entity. It will occupy some memory. And even what is going to happen? For which class you're creating the object, a copy of variables and methods of that class will be loaded into the object. So you can consider object as a magnet, variables and methods as pins. So pins will attract, like pins will come towards the magnet, right? In the same way, if you create object for the employee class, then a copy of variables and functions of the employee class will be loaded into this employee1 object. That means what? This ENO equal to 1001, this EH equal to 34, this E package equal to 9.8, and even the employee detail body, all these things will be loaded. Fine. So this is what that is going to happen if you create object. If you create object for the class, then what will happen? A copy of variables and functions of the class will be loaded into that object. Object will occupy some memory, and in that object's memory, everything from the class will be loaded. Fine. So now you will feel something meaningful here. Yeah. So what happened here? I'm creating employee1 object for the employee class. Then everything from that employee class will be loaded into the object. So employee1.env. So what you are asking actually in the employee1 object, go to env variable and get its value. In employee1, what is env? 1001, right? So that will be displayed. In the employee1 object, go to EH value and get its value. So that is 34. In the employee1 object, go to E package value, that is nothing but 9.8. In employee1, get ENO, EH and E package value, that is 1001, 34 and 9.8 will be displayed. Then employee1.employee details. The employee details body is executed. So employee details is printed, hash is printed for 30 times, employee number is ENV is 1001, age is 34, package is again 9.8. Fine, we will leave the self for the next, like we will just discuss it after 5 minutes, that's fine. So what is the new point that I told? When you create object, everything from the object will be loaded into the object, and simply you're asking to get the values from that object, get ENO, E package and EH value from the employee1. Similarly, employee1.employee details, just execute the body of employee details here. So I will show one point again here. Yeah. So yes, please go through this point once. Fine. Object will occupy some memory and it will be getting a copy of variables and functions of the class into it. So that is what we should know regarding the object creation. What is going to happen if we create object for the class? Now the next point, we will discuss what is self. So before that, what I will do is I will write one small code snippet. You just tell me whether there is any error or it is correct. Okay. So what will happen like if this code is executed? So what is going to happen if this code is executed? Any error or everything is good?
If those two go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, Priya and Darren Dikshit, both can give your answers.
Is that 2 as a parameter being passed?
Yeah, this is the parameter. So any issue will be there here or?
Yeah, because when you defined the function, you did not give any parameter there. So that function is not expecting any value there. If you put X there, then only you can put data in bracket 2. If you, while defining data, if you put X.
Yes.
Something.
So you are actually passing parameter to the function, but you're not taking an argument here. So if you pass a parameter, argument must be taken. Otherwise it will be an error. So let it be X or A or whatever. Any argument name is okay. Now it will be okay. Correct. This is discussed right earlier in functions. Now what I will do is, now I will take the same thing in the class. So I'm taking a class called as demo. In that we are taking the data function. Then we are writing like this. So if I want to use the variables and methods of a class, then I have to create an object for the class. D is the object created for the demo class. Once the object is created, object dot method name. That is the syntax to call the function. Yes or no? That is the basic thing, right? In a class, I had taken the function. To call anything, you create object for that class and then you can call. So D is the object that is created for the demo class, and then D dot data. So the data function is called, and whatever the body is there in that, that will be executed. But I am saying that here is also an error. There is an error here also. What is the reason for the error?
Do we have to do D equals to D dot data?
No. Object creation syntax is object
Okay.
equal to class name. Yeah. So the reason for the error is like this. The instruction that is written by you will be converted like this by Python. See, with what object you are calling the function, that object will be sent as a default parameter to the function. That object will be sent as a default parameter to the function. See, just now you all told that if I pass 2, I have to take an argument A to hold it. Some argument has to be taken, right? In the same way, by default, the calling object, you will call this method by using an object, right? The object that calls the method will be sent as a default parameter. So the cursor will go to the data definition with the D. Then you have to hold, like you have to take an argument here to hold that D. You are taking A to hold this A, right? In the same way, you have to take an argument to hold that calling object. So in that is nothing but self. So D is actually there in self now. What is there in self means very simple. This method is called by an object, right? That object will be coming here as a default parameter. To hold that object, we are taking self. So it can only be A or any argument name, correct? Here also the same thing. It is locked like only self. You can take your own argument name, no problem. But why it is generally self? Let's see why it is generally self. I'm taking a class demo. In that I'm creating a function called as data. See, when I open the bracket, it is taking self automatically because Python pretty well knows that the function, the object that calls this function will come. So see, I didn't type self, right? So that's why we will leave it as it is. But if we want, we can change, there is no problem. So we will apply the same thing here also. Yeah, here. So employee one dot employee details. We are calling the employee details function here with the employee one object, correct? So this employee one object will be sent as a default parameter to the function. So employee details will be sent as a default parameter. So to hold this employee one object, we are taking self. Now self is having what? Employee one. So now see again employee one dot envo means what? In employee one envo is 1001, right? That's why the same is printed. Employee one dot eh in employee one eh is 34, right? So that's why the same is printed. Employee one dot e package in employee one e package is 9.8. You have to replace all the cells with employee one object. The same thing, right? In employee one get eno, in employee one get eh, in employee one get e package. Correct, like that. So what I'm saying here is, to call this employee details, to call the function in the class, you need to have an object. So what is the object that is created? The object that is created is employee one. So employee one dot employee details you're saying. That means the employee details function is called with the employee one object. So to hold it, you are taking self. So the self is having employee one. In employee one, you're getting ENO, E-agent, E-package. You're asking to get these values. So actually I told that the object, calling object will be sent as a parameter to the function, right? And to hold it, you're taking self, right? Even more strictly speaking, the address of the calling object will be sent, not the calling object. The address of the calling object. See, every object will have the address, right? So let's say the address of the employee one object is 1001. So strictly speaking, the address of the object will be sent to the function. That is 1001 will be stored into this self. But why like that? Why Python people are sending the object as an argument to the function? Is there any benefit of doing like that? Means yes. So let's say I have to give lot of chocolates to you. I came to you and I had given the first chocolate to you. I went away. Again after 1 hour, I came to you and I had given the second chocolate. Again after 1 hour, I came to you and I had given the third chocolate. Again after 1 hour, came and given fourth chocolate. Again after 1 hour, fifth chocolate. But it is very difficult for me to come and go for those many times to give chocolates to you. So what I will do is, instead of coming and going every time, I will just buy a chocolate box. I will purchase a chocolate box, and what all the chocolates that have to be given to you, I will put in the chocolate box. So I will come just for once. I will give the whole box to you and I'll go away. From that time onwards, like whenever you want to have chocolates, you will only be taking from that box. Fine. So here also the same thing. Actually, when you create object for the class, all the data of the class will be loaded into the object. All the data of the class will be loaded into the object. Fine. Now the object is fully loaded with data. So what Python people are saying, like they are just doing like this. The object with fully loaded data will be sent to the function, so that this function can pick up any value from that particular object. That function can put any variable, can pick up any variable. So you have to consider object as a chocolate box and variables as chocolates. So you are sending the chocolate box to the function so that the function can pick up any chocolate, like that. The object is already loaded with data, right? So the object with full of data you are sending to the function, so that the function can use any of the variable or any of the data. Instead of sending individual entities like ENO, comma, EH, comma, E package, comma, like that, directly we are sending the object to make the function to use anything from that object. So hope you understand the concept of self. Go through this one. Yeah, that's one, please.
Harika, you mentioned that we can put any other value or any other
Argument, yeah.
value, right?
Yeah.
Argument instead of self.
Yeah.
So if we do that, we just have to define that, right?
No, nothing.
In the object. Okay.
Nothing. Say directly you can take A, B, X, just the argument name can be anything, right? Like the same thing. Any argument name is okay.
So if I say S here, will it take S as the parameter in the object?
Yeah, definitely. Then you have to write yes dot. Instead of self
Right.
dot, you have to take yes dot. It is after all
So-
the argument name.
So why they came up with the word self? And the reason I'm asking is I have a code that I've been working, and even I noticed they created a this definition and they have self in there.
See, that is just the general thing. Some argument name they are giving, they have to give, right? So self in a sense like its own address. The object which is sent here will be like the address of the object that is used here will be stored here. So how can I say, is like self in the sense its own, which object is calling that address is stored here, right? So that, like that.
So they just use more of like a definition, like a name of.
Yeah, some name they had given that. So which object calls this function? That object address itself is stored here, right? That's why it is like self. Which object is calling this function? that object address itself is stored in this function as an argument. That's why like itself.
Got it. Okay.
Fine. Yeah, so maybe if everyone reads this, then it will be like good. Yeah, please go through this once. Fine. Hope everyone can read this.
Just one other question. So if we create a class and I want to use that class in my scripts, right? In other Python scripts, can I save that class as dot class and then call that class in other scripts?
No, in a module you can put and do. So that is the next topic. Okay, we will see that. Just in a module you put, because I told that class can have modules also. Okay, you can import it in. Okay, fine. Okay, now few important points we will discuss. Python is both procedure and object-oriented language. Actually, in procedure-oriented languages like C, there is no concept of class. We have to write the functions alone without classes. Procedure-oriented languages, we have to write the functions alone without any classes. In object-oriented languages like Java or .NET, we have to write the functions inside the class. Without class, you cannot write the function. Without class, you cannot write the function. Only inside the classes, you can write the function. In procedure-oriented languages like C, we have to write the functions outside the classes. We can write the functions outside the classes in Python. Like object-oriented languages, we can write the functions inside the classes also. That's why Python is both procedure and object-oriented language. Like C, we can write the functions outside. So almost till day before yesterday's class, we had done that only. We had written the functions without any class only, right? So like object-oriented languages, we can write the functions inside the classes. So Python is both. When people ask us whether Python is procedure or object-oriented, means we can say that it is both. So that is one point. And now the question is like this. See, we can write the functions inside the class and outside the class. We know that. But what is the difference between the functions written inside the class and outside the class? So let's say we are writing the functions inside and outside the classes. So data function is there inside the class. Data one function is outside the class. Yeah. Can you please tell me the difference that you observe?
If you create in a class that you can call the function using an object.
Okay, that means the method inside the class can be called only by using the object. Okay, fine. Then this one.
You can just call the function directly without an object.
Yes, correct. Excellent. This is the first difference. The function or method inside the class can be called only by using the object, but the method outside the class can be called directly. That is the first difference. Second difference is what? Second difference?
You need to import the module of the function without the class.
No. Let's say there is no module, nothing. Okay, just the function inside the class and outside the class. There is no module, let's say, okay, normal Python file.
If we call the function in a class, and if we don't define a value, then it will take object as a default value, or either you define self to call it.
Yeah, exactly. The function inside the class should have a mandatory argument self. That is what you mean to say, right?
Right.
Yeah. The function inside the class should have a mandatory argument that is nothing but self. But the function outside the class may not have any mandatory argument. It's not mandatory. Correct? So what are the two differences that I told us? Function outside the class can be called directly without any object, but the function inside the class can be called only by using the object. Function inside the class should have a mandatory argument self. Function outside the class need not to have any mandatory argument. Okay. Now what we will do is we will see the principles of OOPS. So what are they? Classes, object, encapsulation, inheritance, abstraction, polymorphism, all of them will be coming under the principles of OOPS. So firstly, what we will do is, we will talk about the inheritance. Firstly, we will see the inheritance. Fine. So what is this inheritance? What it is going to do and all? Let's understand. Okay. Let's say my father and myself, we are there. My father and me, we are there. So my father is having a property in India, let's say, and I'm having a property in US, let's say. When I become the child of my father, I will get my own property along with the property in India. Of course, I'm the child of my father. I'll be getting my own property along with the property of my father. So like that only we will consider. Let's say A is the parent and B is the child of A. So class is a collection of variables and functions, right? In the class A, B display A or A, B, D are the variables and functions available. In the class B, C, D display B are the variables and functions available. When B becomes the child of A, B will get its own properties along with the properties of the parent. So when B becomes the child of A, B will get its own properties along with the properties of the parent. So this is nothing but the inheritance. That means what? Deriving the child class from the parent so that the child class will get its own properties along with the properties of the parent. For human beings, properties of parent means what? Gold, like cash, size, etc. Right? But after all, for Python classes, properties of parent means what? The variables and methods of the parent class. Nothing more than that, correct? So deriving the child from the parent so that the child will get its own properties along with the properties of the parent. Okay, so this is what the definition, deriving child from the parent so that the child will get its own properties along with the properties of the parent. So now what we will do is, we will see some types of inheritances. Single inheritance. So single inheritance means what? One parent will have only one child. One parent will have only one child. If that is the case, then it is called as what? Single inheritance. Then see, A is the parent and B is the child of A. One parent, one child. Then the hierarchical inheritance. One parent, multiple children. So A is the parent, B, C are the children. Minimum 2 children should be there, but 2 children, 3 children, 100 children, any number is okay. But the parent should be one. If that is the case, then it is called as hierarchical inheritance. And then the multi-level inheritance, relation between grandfather, father, child is the multi-level inheritance. So A is the grandfather, B is the father, and C is the child. Relation between grandfather, father, and child. A is the grandfather, B is the father, C is the child. That is, C is the child of B, B is the child of A. Fine. So multiple inheritance. Multiple inheritance means what? Multiple parents for the single child. Multiple parents for the single child. Minimum 2 parents should be there. 2 parents, 3 parents, 100 parents, but the child is one. So multiple parents for a single child, that is multiple inheritance. Can you tell me one thing? Among these 4 inheritances, 2 are opposite to each other. What are they? So
Hierarchy and multiple hierarchies.
yes, hierarchical and multiple. Yes. Here in hierarchical, 1 parent, multiple children should be there. In multiple parents, the child is 1. The reverse. 1 parent, multiple children. Here, multiple children, but 1 parent. It's like reverse. Okay. Nextly, we will have the hybrid inheritance. Can you tell me one thing? This AB, if you consider the green part AB, this will come under which inheritance?
Single.
Yes, 1 parent, 1 child. AB is single. If we consider BCD, this will come under which inheritance? The blue part?
Hierarchy.
Yes, hierarchical. So this is 1 parent and multiple children. Now, if we consider ABC, then
That's multiple inheritance.
ABC, 1 grandfather, father, child.
Oh, sorry. Multiple level, right? This one.
It's multi-level, grandfather, father, child. So if we consider ABD also, it's multi-level only. A is the grandfather, B is the father, D is the child. Yeah. So in this design, there are combination of inheritances. If we have combination of inheritances, then it is called as hybrid inheritance. If we have a combination of inheritances, then it is nothing but the hybrid inheritance. Fine. So what we will do is we will talk about the single inheritance. We will go back to the single inheritance and we will discuss more on that. Actually, what I will do is I will be writing 4 points here, like 4 instructions. We will discuss which are correct and which are not correct. Using A object, I will call display A or DA. Using A object, I'll call DB function. Using B object, I'll call DB function. Using B object, I will call DA function. Actually, what is the design here? I had taken class A and also the class B. Class B is the child of A, let's say. Class B is the child of A. Small a is the object of class A and small b is the object of class B. Small a is the object of class A and small b is the object of class B. DA, DB are the functions taken in AB classes respectively. So I'm writing 4 instructions, right? Let's check which are correct and which are not correct. A dot DA. A is an object of class A. So in the class A, DA function is there. Yes, it is. So this is going to be called. This instruction is okay. A dot DB. A is an object of which class? Class A, right? A is an object of class A. In class A, DB function is there. In class A, DB is there, not there, right? So I cannot call it using the A object. It's an error. B dot DB. B is an object of class B. In class B, DB is there. Yes, it is there. So it will be okay. Now, B dot DA. B is an object of class B. In class B, DA is there. So this instruction is erroneous or it is fine, it is good. What do you say?
Okay.
This will be okay?
Because B can inherit from parent, right? In single.
Yeah, exactly. This will also be okay. See, once B becomes the child of A, once B becomes the child of A, B will get its own properties along with the properties of the parent. So DA will also be there in the class B. So what we can do is using the object of class B, we can call both DB and DA. Because B is already, DA is also there in B, right? That's why. That means what? Using the object of the parent class, we can access only the parent class members. But using the object of the child class, we can access child class members along with the parent class members. Both we can call or both we can access. Fine. So we all will rejoin once, but then we will get back, connect back.